Welcome back to another week on the Sturry Link Road project. This is episode 22, Cut, Dig, Drive. And once again, there's been a lot happening across the scheme, with several different areas moving forward at the same time. At the south abutment, the focus this week turns firmly towards the foundations already installed. Excavation inside the Cofferdam continues deeper. The completed piles are cropped down, and the area begins to take on a very different appearance as the teams work towards the next stage of construction. Over on Platform B, piling operations continue as the rig moves into its next position, with reinforcement cages arriving and concrete deliveries getting underway. And alongside all of that, construction of the temporary pedestrian bridges is beginning to become much more substantial. There's also been a big change at Platform D. Following the completion of the new entrance, larger vehicles can now access the platform directly, opening the way for another significant phase of work. New plant arrives, sheet piling equipment is mobilized, and preparations begin for another cofferdam to take shape. North of the railway, the earthworks continue to gather pace, with large volumes of material being excavated and removed as the future northern part of the scheme starts to develop. We'll also see the public right-of-way CB64 officially diverted this week, allowing construction to continue safely through another section of the project. And as always, there's plenty happening in between. Drainage works, muck-away operations, deliveries, heavy plant movements, and plenty of activity across the platforms. There's a lot to get through this week, and some of the changes are becoming increasingly difficult to appreciate from ground level alone. So let's get into another week of the Sturry Link Road project. This is episode 22, Cut, Dig, Drive. Starting the week at the south abutment, the first of several deliveries of steel arrive. These different lengths and shapes of reinforcing steel will form part of the reinforcement for the next stage of the structure, as the foundations inside the cofferdam begin to move towards the construction of the pile cap. There were several deliveries like this throughout the week, bringing in the materials needed to turn those completed piles into the foundations for the permanent structure. Over on Platform B, meanwhile, another important part of the piling operation is underway. A concrete lorry has backed into position alongside the piling rig, with the concrete pump ready to transfer the concrete into the CFA piling system. Before that concrete goes into the works though, a sample is taken for a slump test. A measured amount of fresh concrete is placed into the test cone, and then the cone is lifted away, allowing the concrete to settle. The amount it slumps is measured and recorded, providing a quick check that the concrete is behaving within the required specification before it goes into the pile. The results are recorded, and once everything is checked, the concrete can continue its journey into the piling operation. Before we go any further with the work inside the south abutment cofferdam, it's worth explaining the different stages taking place here. The first step is to excavate down to the required level, allowing the specialist contractors to access the piles. They then drill through each pile, so a lifting cable can be installed. The cable is connected to the excavator, which takes the weight of the section being removed. The pile is then cut completely through, including the reinforcement steel, and the excavator carefully lifts that section away. This is being done because the lifting rings have been cast directly into the tops of these piles. Because of their position, the tops can't simply be crunched away while leaving the reinforcement intact, so all 16 piles in the cofferdam first have to be cut completely flush. But this isn't the final pile level. Once all 16 have been cut, the cofferdam will be excavated further. That's when the hydraulic pile cropper comes in, removing the remaining concrete from the pile heads and exposing the reinforcement starters. That reinforcement will eventually form the connection between the piles and the pile cap. So what we're watching here is really the first stage of a multi-step process to prepare these foundations for the structure that will eventually sit above them. North of the railway, the lorry movements have been almost continuous throughout the week. Large volumes of soil are being excavated as work progresses around the future north abutment platform, with a steady stream of dumpers and tipper lorries moving material away from the excavation. With so much material coming out of the ground, keeping the muck moving is becoming a major operation in itself. And as we've seen elsewhere on the project, the preparation of these access routes is just as important as the main construction works. At Hall Road D, the entrance is being shaped into a bell mouth, giving larger vehicles the space they need to safely enter and leave the working area. It won't be long before this entrance is put to the test, with some seriously large deliveries arriving later in the week. Back inside the south abutment cofferdam, the preparation of the piles is moving on quickly. At this stage, there's just one pile left to completely cut through. On the opposite side of the cofferdam, excavation has already gone deeper, and that section has now been blinded to create a clean, stable working surface. The other half hasn't been excavated down to that level yet, as the team is still completing the final pile cut. You can already see the next stage beginning to take shape though, with several of the piles on the excavated side already cropped down to their required formation level. We'll come back to this later in the episode, when you can really see just how much this cofferdam has changed. Over on platform B, another delivery arrives, this time bringing in a large amount of scaffolding equipment, and it certainly didn't sit around for long. The materials were put straight to use, with a substantial scaffold structure taking shape on the platform over the course of the week. Another sign that the temporary pedestrian bridge works are moving rapidly from preparation into construction. Look who's just rolled back down the Hall Road onto platform D. Volker Ground Engineering are back on site, and this time they're here for a much bigger job, preparing the ground for 2 new cofferdams that will form the foundations for Piers 3 and 4 of the viaduct. It's another major step for platform D, which has been transformed over the last few weeks from a developing working platform into an area ready for some serious foundation work. Meanwhile, north of the railway, the dozer is making repeated passes along the edge of the future north abutment. It's now stripping the topsoil from the route of the former CB64 public right-of-way. For years, this was a path used by the local community, countless people walking across this very ground as part of their everyday journeys. Now, with the right-of-way diverted, the path itself is being removed to make way for the new infrastructure that will eventually occupy this area. and the piling operation on Pier 1 has moved incredibly quickly. Around 15 piles have already been installed here in a relatively short space of time, and the rig has wasted no time moving across to Pier 2 for the next set of foundations. With a reinforcement cage suspended from the crane and ready to be lowered, another load of concrete is being fed into the pump. So while one pier is already complete from a piling perspective, the next one is already well underway. Meanwhile, over on Platform D, the sheet piling operation was beginning to take shape. The sheet piling rig was being mobilized, with deliveries of sheet piles arriving alongside it as the team prepared the area for the next stage of the works. At this point, it was all about getting the equipment and materials into position. The pre-augering and installation would follow as the week progressed, and with the piling operation on Platform B also moving towards its next stage, there was plenty happening across the site to keep an eye on. A little corner of Platform D has been left untouched for the last 5 or 6 weeks, protected by an exclusion zone because of nesting birds. Now that the birds have moved on, the fencing has been removed and the team are strimming the grass. It looks like this previously protected area is now being brought into the working platform. All 16 piles have now been cut completely flush, removing the sections containing the cast-in lifting points. With that first stage complete, excavation can continue around the pile heads. You can see that one half of the Cofferdam has already been excavated down and blinded, creating a clean working surface, while the remaining section continues to be dug out. By the end of the week, this whole area will look very different, with the Cofferdam approaching completion and the foundations ready for the next stage, the formwork. And just like that, pre-augering is underway for the Pier 3 Cofferdam on Platform D. This is the beginning of another substantial cofferdam that will eventually form the foundations for Pier 3 of the viaduct. With the excavation now completed and the base fully blinded, the hydraulic pile cropper can get to work. Its job is to literally crush and break away the concrete around the top of each pile, bringing it down to the required formation level while leaving the reinforcement steel exposed. And when you slow this footage right down, you can really see just how much force is being put through that concrete as the cropper bites into it. It almost looks like an explosion as the pilehead gives way. But this is precision work, removing the concrete they don't need, while carefully leaving the reinforcement behind for the next stage of the foundation. And there it is. Sheet pile number 1 for the Pier 3 Cofferdam is in. Just one down, with another 75 to go before this Cofferdam is complete. It might not look like much yet, but this is the start of another major foundation structure taking shape on Platform D. North of the railway, progress has really ramped up since the public right-of-way was diverted. Marker systems are now in place along the railway, while the teams are excavating trenches for the new ducting that will eventually take the electricity cables underground. It's another significant change to this part of the site, as the route of the new infrastructure cuts through ground that has been part of the local public right-of-way for years and years. Another reminder that, as this project moves forward, the landscape around it is changing with it. So, as another busy week comes to an end, we're back above the southern end of the scheme. Normally, this is where we'd get those really low-level weekend shots, but with teams still working here on Saturday morning, we had to keep our distance. Even so, there's plenty to see. Down at the south abutment, the transformation is remarkable. Not long ago, this was simply a working platform waiting for the piling rig to arrive. Now 16 piles have been installed, the cofferdam excavated, and the pile heads brought down to formation level. The base has been blinded, creating a clean working area, and the teams are now clearing away the final pieces of concrete and rubble. Another major stage complete. Over on Platform B, the piling rig looks a little different. A breakdown on Friday left it partially dismantled and temporarily stopped the piling operation. It's put the crews behind, but that's construction. Machines break down, and after 8 months of watching this project, a breakdown like this, along with a couple of hydraulic hose issues, is a relatively small setback in the bigger picture. Then dropping down towards Platform B, we get a look at one of this week's biggest temporary structures. This enormous scaffold structure is one of the temporary pedestrian bridges being built on the platform. We've watched the deliveries arrive, and now those individual components have become a substantial structure. From down here, you can really appreciate its scale. It's another important piece of temporary infrastructure, keeping pedestrian movement safe while construction continues around it. Then across to Platform D. The sheet piling rig is in position, and the first row of sheets for the Pier 3 Cofferdam is already in the ground. Around 76 sheets will eventually form this Cofferdam. We've seen the rig arrive, the sheets delivered, and the pre-augering begin. Now we're seeing the first of them disappear into the ground. And when we pull right back, the bigger picture starts to emerge. 16 piles at the south abutment, 15 piles completed at Pier 1, with piling continuing at Pier 2. And now the first sheet piles going in for Pier 3. North of the railway, the earthworks continue around the future north abutment, while new infrastructure gradually replaces the landscape that was here before. Everywhere you look, something is changing. Foundations are being formed, earth is being moved, and temporary structures are going up. When we first started documenting this project, much of this was simply open ground and working platforms. Now the foundations of the permanent structure are beginning to emerge. Week by week, piece by piece, the landscape is changing. There's still a long way to go, but the progress is becoming harder to miss, and with another week complete, we'll leave the site here. Thanks for watching episode 22. I'll see you in episode 23.